Three, two, one. Hey there, Dave Melenda, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I am honored to be hanging out with a cool guy that probably a lot of you already know. So we're going to dig deep into his story, but we're talking with Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. How are you, Pat?
I'm great, Dave. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, I'm honored to pick your brain here for a little bit. So I see a ton of your good stuff on LinkedIn. I see a lot of people learning from you. And who doesn't need an idea coach, right?
Oh, you got to have one. Everyone needs one of them on speed dial, don't they?
Exactly. We all have a guy, right? Whether it's for cleaning, painting, fixing, whatever. So I have a LinkedIn guy. I got a memory guy. Now I'm about to have an idea guy. So give me an overview of what that idea coach concept is and what that means to the listeners.
Yeah, I think idea coaching is a way that I can express the unique value that I bring to small business owners to help their marketing. I could have said that I was a marketing agency or a marketing strategist or come up with a different way to express my unique value, but my real purpose is to help people find a way to say something that they just can't get to come out right. Like, how do I express this so my customer hears it right the first time? How do I uniquely position myself in the market? And how do I run for office on that idea to increase my sales and get more attention?
That's awesome. It's so when I hear marketing, everybody has their own kind of connotation of that. So when you think of it, when you use that word, what memories or what things come to your mind to be able to help us understand marketing from your perspective?
My perspective of marketing is just basically the activity that you engage in to get the attention of your customers.
Okay,
So you can improve the standing in their mind or maybe convert something to a sale. But the
gotcha.
art of getting the attention of your customers, that's
Okay.
probably the easiest way I would describe marketing activity.
Awesome. My thinking, because I focus on the sales side in my life, so sales and marketing are kind of always, at odds with each other sometimes. And so I see it as, marketing gets the phone to ring and then sales kind of picks up the phone and takes it from there. So that's how I view it. So obviously everybody listening has their own kind of view. I just wanted to get the professional's opinion before I, move into it, because again, it's we got to be talking about the right thing. And so when marketing comes up, it just creates a lot of different topics in people's minds. So,
And what's the old phrase? Nothing happens until something's sold. So I have a
right.
ton of respect for people that are sales experts and sales coaches, because I can get their attention just fine. But when the lead comes in, you got to be able to convert it to dollars. And you're exactly right. Those
Yeah.
are two different things.
Yeah. I just printed out something this morning and it says, I got to pull this off and read it. It was so funny. Dear realist, optimist, and pessimist. While you guys were busy arguing whether the glass is half full or half empty, I sold the glass. Sincerely, entrepreneurist. So I was like, I like that, because sometimes sales get such a negative connotation in people's minds. I mean, I think back to third grade, sitting in that schoolroom, and they said, so what do you guys want to be when you grow up, right? And you hear fireman, you hear lawyer, dentist, you hear, all these people. I never once heard, man, I can't wait, teacher, to get out of high school and go down to Joe's used cars and just sell my life away. Nothing sales related came up. So
Well,
what about your third grade class?
yeah, we didn't really go over that in third grade. But what's interesting is if you're a small business owner or an entrepreneur, no matter what you do, you're in sales,
Oh,
period.
absolutely.
If,
Right.
if you're not good at sales, you're not going to be good at business. So you
Right.
got to learn how to at least get your arms around it and set yourself up for success.
That's awesome. And so often now we're trying to find other words, instead of sales. And
Mhm.
so like business development is like the new, wave of, hey, I'm in business development. I don't sell anything. It's just like, oh my gosh, and I laugh it's like, if you've ever been on a date, you've sold something right there just to get yourself on that date, so that's awesome. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of clear up front what your definition is of marketing, because I really like that piece. So you talked about unique value. it's in a sea of everything going on, in the marketing world. How do you carve out, how does a small business really carve out something for themselves, in your estimation?
I think your unique value position is directly related to your confidence at what you do. And what I
Okay.
mean by that is that if you want to be a generalist and say that you're available for someone's marketing needs, I can help you with everything. I
Sure.
would assert that you're not very confident. And when
Okay.
it comes down to having that unique value proposition, the first thing I would ask you is, okay, what are you the best in the world at providing? Everyone has a certain slice of their expertise that they're really good at and that they really enjoy. There's one little part that they're better at than everybody else. And that little part is what I would say is your unique value proposition if you have the courage to pursue it.
Okay.
So you may have to say, I'm the idea coach. Like that's the one part that I do.
Sure.
And to make a business for that, I have to run for office against a wider potential customer audience
Sure.
than I would if I was a marketing agency for small businesses in Milwaukee.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So you
Yeah,
pick that
absolutely.
one lane and you go aggressively after it. That's what I think the great unique value propositions are.
So that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Pat. What do you think you're the best in the world at then when somebody asks that question to you? What's your answer?
Absolutely. I'm the idea coach. I connect the disconnected. You tell me what the outcome is, you tell me what the inputs are, and I'll help you find a way to say it and make it come to life in a way that it probably didn't occur to you. And that's the one little piece of marketing that I do. There are brilliant marketing people all around us, and everybody has their strengths. That's my strength. And when it
Okay.
comes to making my ideas come to life, I turn to experts to fulfill them because there are people better at Instagram, better at websites, better at TV commercials than I am. But this one little piece of, I don't know how to say this. How should I say this? That's my jam.
That's so cool. So if I have an idea in my head that I'm
Mhm.
struggling to get on paper or on social media, ideally I'm struggling getting an idea to the end user. That's so if I'm understanding you right, that's kind of where you jump in and help. Getting into the weeds a little bit, are you helping me get that out of my head? Are you working on getting it to the customer? Are you doing both? Where do you kind of jump in that?
It's a little bit of both
Okay.
because you have to identify what does the outcome, what does success look like? That's the first thing you have to figure out. And then you have to figure out who's going to care and why. So the two inputs are what's unique and then what's in it for me is the customer. And then the winning idea will express the unique value proposition
Okay.
in a way that the customer wants to hear it. So that way, you say as a salesperson, you can ride in and know that you're hitting that emotional benefit that they need to say yes.
Okay.
If you try and sell someone your features, it's not going to work. It's all
Sure.
about selling those benefits, as you know. So my job is to help you say what you're doing in a way that is benefit rich so that the customer feels that emotional bond with what's in it for me. So that's we're down in the weeds now.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
it's not just, oh, how about a blue elephant? And there's the
Sure.
idea. Like
Yeah. Yep.
it's pretty strategic when we pull out the why of the idea, the what's in it for me for the customer. And then if you really want to get down in the weeds, can we get down in the weeds for a minute?
Absolutely. For
All right,
sure.
cool. So what you need to do to find a way for the customer to get it the first time, the device I often use is like a shared cultural experience,
Okay.
something that the customer knows about and can relate to. So you're not trying to teach them something as you're introducing something they're unfamiliar with. So if you can find a way to present your idea in a way that they're already kind of familiar with what that kind of thing is,
Okay.
then you're going to be way down the road on getting them to understand it quickly and understand the emotional benefit of buying it or engaging with that person.
So that makes a huge assumption that I know my prospect then, correct?
You need to know your target market.
Yep.
So if you know your target market and can fully define who you're going to go after, and more importantly, who you're not going to go after,
Okay.
right? So if you can define, I'm looking for this type of person that is wanting this type of product for these reasons, and I'm going to go after those people, then you can present your product in a way that it's easy for them to consume. But then again, that goes back to courage.
Yeah.
Do you have the courage to target a narrow market that's going to absolutely fall in love with your product rather than putting a line in the water and fishing for whoever might bite?
Sure. And so you bring up a really good point, which I want to get your feedback on, and I'll probably offend people by saying it, but it is what it is. It's my podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So,
Yeah.
so you have these companies like Walmart, and I'm not a Walmart fan. I personally wait in the car when my wife goes. I just, I'm just not a fan because they, to me, have really hurt small business, but that's neither here nor there. But the world today is thinking about, man, if I can get my tires changed while I'm getting my teeth cleaned, while I'm getting my laundry done, I mean, I have multitasked and I have created. I'm doing great, right? I mean, how do you hone in on something specific when in the world in general, generalists are becoming more and more, the daily routine? And I'm just curious how you combat that.
Well, in that instance, there's a large retailer in Southeast Wisconsin that I don't want to name, but I was talking
I
to them.
did. Go ahead.
No, no, I just out of
That's all right.
respect.
No
But
worries.
the phrase that they use is trip assurance. So
Okay.
they would market to those people saying you can get your tires changed and your toothpaste all in
Yep.
one spot. It's called trip assurance. So
Sure.
they'll say we're convenient. So what's in it for me? I only want to go to one stop. I want to be able to get everything that I need and I want to get out.
Okay.
So you would market trip assurance. And if you listen to what Walmart is marketing,
Yep.
they're using that more than their finest cuts of beef or expertise in changing tires. So
Right.
that's how you would package it under those emotional benefits.
Okay. And that's where I guess you then have to really know yourself on where you want to be, because I'm seeing some of my customers, some of my clients trying to grab market share that they may or may not have, should be doing.
Yeah.
So, they have this idea like we talk about, and then it just keeps expanding. So how do you get people to narrow their focus? Somebody told me once, if you could just sell to left-handed plumbers, you would really be fantastic on what you do. So how do you kind of, narrow people's focus when their ideas they kind of just keep expanding as they go? As an entrepreneur, we always have these ideas, right?
Yeah.
How does that work for you?
Well, the way that I normally do it is I'll sit someone down and just say, what do you love doing? What do you love doing more than anything else on the planet? And the secret that I've heard expressed, and this isn't my phrase, but I use it, is what do you do that feels like play to you, but work to everybody else?
Oh, that's cool.
So let's say
Oh,
you're a tax accountant and
sure.
you just love doing taxes and money, and to everybody else, they think it's just the most awful job on the planet.
Sure.
So, how do I help people narrow? Is I say the two questions like go in combination. What are you the best in the world at?
Okay.
And is that the thing that you love more than anything else?
Right.
And again, because we were talking about my business, the idea generation and creativity portion is the thing that I love more than anything else. So
Gotcha.
I'm
Okay.
trying to make a business just on that. And when you
Okay.
give someone the the affirmation and the mindset that you can make a living doing just what you love and it
Sure.
won't feel like work,
Yeah.
it trips something in their head and they get better and they feel more fulfilled and they feel happier and their product improves and their customers are happier because
Sure.
they're delivering that one thing that they love more than anything else. That's how I go about it. And organically, you've run into these people, I'm sure, that are better salespeople than they are strategists.
Yep.
They can sell a bunch of stuff and then they get mad at fulfilling the work.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
you're doing work that you hate, that's a pretty good sign that you're doing something. You're a better seller than you are actually fulfilling it because you got mad at what you actually sold.
Right. Yep, absolutely. And I mean, there's great relief pitchers, there's great closers, and there's
Mhm.
great starters, right? And you rarely can flip those around. I mean, we're from Milwaukee, so we've had, Craig Counsell, our Brewers coach, he's tried some of those things. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. But generally speaking, a guy that can, ideally, a closer, in his best day is pitching like under 10 pitches, right? That's like a
Right.
fantastic day for him. And for that to be, the first inning, he can't come out and do it again. So to your point, knowing your strength and knowing your, your value, it is a confidence thing because I mean, let's be real here. It's like you have an idea that somebody wants to get out of your head and pay you for. Really? I
Yeah.
mean, that's not easy to have that, to think that somebody really is going to want to do that. When I wrote my book, as I'm writing my first book, I'm like, who's going to want this, And then it goes out for release day and it immediately goes to, Amazon #1 bestseller in 3 categories. I'm like, okay. So I call my dad. I'm like, hey, did you just buy a bunch of books? Mom, did you, because I'm thinking to myself, because I'm
Yeah.
still having confidence issues. And the release day is, upon us. And I can admit that. I'm fine with it. But then all of a sudden you get a call from somebody that you've never heard of. And they're like, wow, I read your book, or I really enjoyed this chapter, whatever. And that starts to build your confidence. Do you work with people's head trash, so to speak? Is that part of your job, part of your daily routine with them, is to try and talk them out of some of that stuff that's in their head?
As a coach, that comes with the territory when you're
Okay.
helping them express who they are and why they're great. Because I take this idea coaching and it turns into a flavor of business coaching where I have monthly relationships and we're talking about their objectives. And it has a creative flair, but it definitely has some ongoing business value and coaching stuff built in.
Sure. Sure.
So you run into that around every corner. So what will happen is that doubt will come back in, or they will feel they'll express or externalize something that is a negative thought or a doubt,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you're kind of obligated to say, there you go again. Don't do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
That we talked about that, and then
Right.
normally they'll catch themselves and move forward.
And that's what so the second book that I'm working on, I'm about 20% done. It's going to be a business fable about blind spots.
Oh,
And, it's interesting because blind spots are very tricky for business owners. Number one, you don't know what you don't know. So you can't really be held accountable for that. However, you can't use that as an excuse to the bank. Hey, I didn't know. And they don't care, right? There's certain customers a lot of times are like, hey, too bad. So you have to kind of create a zone where people are helping you with your blind spots, which I think is really why you have, groups and you have different things that are going on. If I was somebody that had a blind spot that was struggling with it, how do you typically work through that with them?
you got to identify where it hurts, right? What's their pain point? It's a conversation of what's not working. And the phrase that I always use with people, to the point where it's kind of a joke with people that are in my close in network, is I'll hold up my pen and I'll say, okay, here's a magic wand. Wave the magic wand and the problem goes away. What's the
Yep.
problem?
Yep.
And normally they'll say something that relates to their blind spot or the outcome that they need to have different.
Sure.
And that opens the door in a
Yep.
fun, kind of quirky way that
Yeah.
allows them to say out loud the actual thing. It kind of disarms everything, and then you can kind of
Sure.
go from there.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And people, isn't it funny? I mean, when we were kids, we just couldn't wait to, let's pretend, let's play, we couldn't wait to do that stuff. And now as we grew up, it's like, man, that's like kid stuff. I don't want magic wand. What are you, nuts?
Yeah.
But the reality is I mean, my learning level is probably 6th or 7th grade, so I use like Mr. Potato Head a lot because I want to build my ideal client. I want
Yeah.
to build my ideal prospect. I try and use simple things, and some people really can gravitate to that, and some people, they struggle with that. And so, you brought up a word, pain, and I had a great discussion with Jeff Van Kampen on one of my podcasts, and he said it's a whole lot easier to sell pain pills than vitamins. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's like brilliant from a sales perspective,
Yeah.
because people will buy pain to get something to go away, but how many people are really buying, vitamins, to actually improve something? So I thought that was kind of good. Do you, I'm assuming, but I want to make sure I get that right. Do you find a lot of pain as a coach with when you're coaching somebody along in that process? Is that a typical thing for you?
Frustration, pain,
Yep.
disappointment. A lot of times they'll think if they build a better mousetrap, that's the key to success. And that's not the key to success. Sometimes you don't even need the better mousetrap. You
Right.
just need to be able to communicate the trap that you have and someone will buy it from you.
Yeah.
And that's not, um, encouraging people not to make excellent work.
Sure.
It just, you can't, as you well know from being a salesperson, you can't invent your way to great sales. You have to express what the item is in a way that people want it.
Right.
So the reason why I'm on the planet is to make sure that people understand why they're unique. They use that unique value to connect with the benefits for the client, and they sell benefits, not features. Because too many people want to talk about what their product does,
Right.
and not nearly enough people want to talk about what the product does for me, the end
Sure.
user.
Sure.
And if everyone understood that, I'd be out of a job. But those are the things that I try and remind people on a daily
Sure.
basis.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. And so, interestingly enough, when you talk about emotions in selling, emotions in marketing, so I do a lot of work with the DISC personality profile.
Sure.
So we use it in selling, we use it in leadership, we use it pretty much in team building, we use it everywhere we possibly can. Now, it's interesting when you talk about emotion in this situation because there are, and you know, I'm going to say, you know, for simple math, you know, roughly half of the people that you talk to are very emotional people.
Mhm.
And so if you walk into a sale or you walk into, let's use a marketing message, for instance, because that's what your focus is. So the message, if the message is emotional, it will resonate with about half of the people that are reading it. Now, if you do it non-emotional, it really resonates with the other half, you know, that engineer analytical brain. You know, there are certain people, and it's interesting in the sales training that I do, we have to be really careful because everybody's talking emotion, let's get emotional, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know, we watch these videos of actual people and they say, you know, one side of the coin says, hey, if you're not emotional, then why would I get emotional?
Right.
Right? Then you have the other guy that says, if you're getting emotional, emotion doesn't involve, I don't buy emotionally. So your message, when you're delivering a message for somebody, how do you make sure that you're, and I'm going to use brain, how do you make sure you're hitting both sides of that brain, the analytical side and the emotional side, because you don't know who's really, you know, watching that or listening to that message.
And I think that's a great point because how the actual words are used can get too touchy feely for some people.
Right.
So when I say emotion and customer benefit, it's about positioning the outcome of using their product, not necessarily how you talk about the product. And I'll give you
Sure.
an example. If I owned a lawn care company, I would not position my lawn care company as the grass will look great, the shrubs will be trimmed, there won't be bugs in your lawn, blah, blah, blah. I'm not selling lawn care. What I'm selling are long naps, rounds of golf, time with your kids,
Sure.
one
Yep.
less headache.
Yep.
That when I say emotion, those are the emotional outcomes that you get from buying the product.
Right.
So it's not um, how you feel when you buy it. It's what the emotional outcome of not having to mow my lawn might be. So
Gotcha.
that's what I mean when I talk about emotions, not necessarily the touchy feely nature of how I message it.
Sure. Sure. And that's really important to bring up because again, there are certain people, you know, that will not get emotional when it comes to purchasing, and
Bet.
they will not, you know, allow you in at all to that spot for them. So, you know, that's what I think is hard for somebody that's emotional. I'm an emotional person, and if I'm trying to sell you something, in this case, Pat, and you're not emotional, the more emotional that I go, the
Yeah.
farther you're going to retreat back. And so the harder it is for me to be like, come on, dude, just what's going on here, you know? And you're just like, you know, you're analyzing things, you're taking your time creating, you know, the responses and things. And I'm just like, seriously, come on, let's go. This is going to be a blast. We're going to have so much fun doing this, you know? And
Yeah.
you're like, fun has nothing to do with this. So I think it really takes a skill to be able to kind of hit both sides of that, you know, to be able to hit the emotional side, but also to hit that, you know, the analytical side. We have a saying that say people love to buy, they hate to be sold. And so that's kind of both sides of it there. The other one is that people, they buy emotionally, but they make decisions intellectually. So they buy, there's that buying versus should I? Oh my, it's kind of like the devil and the angel on, should I? Oh, you'll have so much fun with it. Oh, but it costs or whatever that is. So, when your message hits both sides, I think you struck gold in that, because the vast majority of people fall into one of those two categories.
And the best way to do that is to thoroughly understand the customer, and something that you can do that unfortunately few people do. And I'll put this out as a challenge to your listeners.
Sure.
When is the last time you sat down with one of your best customers and just talked about the product? Don't sell them anything.
Right.
Ask how they're doing, ask how the product is working, ask them how they feel about it. What are the benefits that they get out of it? What can we do to get better? When have you connected with your customer last?
Right. Yep.
Sadly, very few people do it. And
Right.
if you have, again, this goes back to courage. If you have the courage to call up a customer and say, how can I get better? And then actually listen to what they say, they'll tell you.
Yeah.
And when it comes to marketing, if you ask the customer what they want, they'll probably use the words that you'll end up using in your marketing campaign. But you have to be confident enough to call them and be willing to hear them say, yeah, that thing you love is really it's not that good.
Right. Yeah.
And that takes a lot of guts. So a lot of people don't do it. It's similar to, I'm sure you run into people that don't want to make sales calls because they don't want to
Oh,
hear
yeah.
no.
Yep.
This is
Absolutely.
similar to that. You got to have the courage to call your best customers and hear how you can do better. And
Yep.
when you do that, you'll be closer to them and you'll dial in your messaging and your product even further.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny you bring that up, Pat, because there are plenty of people that, and I asked the question early on to kind of get a feel for people. If, back in the day, remember those pink slips, that had a message on there for you. If you had two of those in front of you, you come back from lunch, and on your desk, there's one from a brand new client that you've never heard of before. And then there's one from an existing client. Which one do you call back first? And the answer to that kind of gives you an insight into where people are, because plenty of entrepreneurs are like, oh my gosh, I'm totally calling that first cut, that new customer. I need a sale, and there's that excitement there. And then there's a lot of people that are like, hey, I'm taking care of what got me here, and I don't think there's a right or wrong to it. It just kind of is good conversation. So if you got done with this podcast and there were two notes, one from a new client you've never heard from before, and one from your best customer, which one would you call back first?
Absolutely my best customer.
Okay,
No,
cool.
no doubt at all.
Yeah,
Because, as you say, that's who got me here. But
sure.
also, I'm already contractually bound to make sure that they get the results that they need.
Right.
So, not to be analytical, but I'd probably call them back. But here's the thing, and I think this is going to the heart of what you're saying.
Yeah,
And to be honest, I'd probably be more excited to call the new person to see, ooh,
sure. Yep.
here's a new person,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And again, that's the cool part about it, right? And I know that there's a lot of sales professionals that are just, they, like, for me personally, my disc assessment, and it took me a long time to own up this. So counseling does work, okay? But it's interesting because my assessment says that I get bored easy. So I have to constantly be creating opportunities. So that's what I like, is I'm like, oh my gosh, here's a new opportunity. Here's one that, oh yeah, I feel like I've already accomplished it. I've already done what I need to do.
Yep.
And so, but being only, I'm the only one here in my company by design, I have to obviously, wear both hats. So in your situation, contractually want to do that, and you enjoy wearing that other hat. Do you see the business development part from your perspective as, you enjoy that, or is that like kind of a burden that has to be done?
Well, the way that I look at it, and I don't think this is unique, but the strategy that I've used
Hmm.
is all I do is connect and give to people.
Sure.
There are coaches and consultants and subject matter experts that will have a one-on-one, and they might have something that would help you, but they will not share it until
Yeah.
you sign.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy.
Sure. Sure.
If someone calls me and wants to talk, I talk to them.
Sure.
If we're having a one-on-one and I say, "Hey, Dave, have you ever done XYZ? Because I think that might work for you."
Sure.
I would not ever hesitate from sharing that. Or if you send someone my way saying, you might want to call Pat,
Yeah.
he'll help you. I will help them.
Sure.
And that has been my business development strategy as long as I can remember. And what happens is I feel like it's like a circle that's going around.
Right.
And every time the circle comes back to the top, it gets bigger and it gets bigger and it keeps on getting bigger
Sure.
because you keep on earning a reputation as someone that will help people.
Right.
And I feel like that opens more doors than the missed revenue of
Sure.
holding back ideas. So my
Right.
business development strategy is just building and giving to my network. And then when I need something, I've been very fortunate that they've given back.
That's awesome. So it's so easy for anybody to say anything about themselves that they want, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I've, I've sit in hundreds of interviews in my life, whether I never sat in one, I shouldn't say never, I sat in one that they were interviewing me, and that was 30 some years ago when I, ended up starting that company. But I'm usually on the side of, the employer, we'll call it. And
Yeah.
everybody that I usually talk to is like, they can do it all, right? I
Yep.
mean, I'd never, if I say, Pat, what's your weakness? Oh my gosh, I work too much. I care too much. No one wants to talk that way, but
Yeah.
they're all so like, they have the right answers at the right time. So it's easy for you to say that about yourself. Now, the cool part is that I was privy to another podcast where your name came up, and it was with Lori Rifkin,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he went back into the golf carts. He took me
Oh, come
back
on.
into the golf carts where
Yeah.
your 15 minutes literally changed the course of his life. And I bring that up because third party testimonial is so strong, because you can tell me what you want, and I don't have any choice but to believe you. When a third party comes along and says, hey, I spent 15 minutes with this guy, and like he changed the course of my business, for the good, that's like, then I sit up and take notice. I'm like, oh my gosh, that catches my attention.
Yeah.
You remember that situation at all?
Yeah, absolutely. Lori and I had a chance. We had not met each other, and we were playing in the Cosby golf outing for the MMAC,
Okay.
and we were riding in the same cart. And I had never met him before.
Sure.
And Lori just got the idea that he was going to make me tell him how I was different than everybody else. And I
Sure.
couldn't articulate it. And he rode me like a dog for like, I mean, the entire front nine. He would
Yeah.
not let go.
Oh my gosh.
And it was
That
getting
sounds like
annoying.
him.
Oh,
Yeah.
he was just relentless.
Yeah.
And I finally had to say, I don't know. And his output was, okay, well, fine. Well, then figure it out and call me back.
Yeah.
And uh, it really got in my head and it really helped me. And as a result of that, we earned a relationship where I had the ability to do the same thing back to him
Yeah.
and talk to him about the same process that we've just gone through. How are you unique? Who
Sure.
are you trying to influence? What are you the best in the world at? And helped him develop a brand in a way that he can run for office to position himself to grow his business.
Sure. Sure. That's awesome. So
It's
yeah,
great.
so you were probably, your ears were burning that day, but we were talking about you. So
That's very
um,
kind. Thank you.
what are some exercises, or what are some tools or tips or some things that we can do moving back into that competitive advantage? Because I really think that that's, huge for people. How do we discover that? What are some things that you found that people can do to kind of try, and find that out on their own?
Well, you got to listen to yourself and you've got to really think about what you enjoy doing.
Okay.
There is a much longer list of things that we have the ability to do and a very small list of things that we absolutely love to do. So I would write down a couple of exercises. Okay, you're going to get me going here. Now, here's a couple of exercises that I think are pretty good. The first one is write down everything that you do and highlight the things that you love to do. And those are usually the things that you do first because you enjoy them. So that's going to be the first guidepost of what you should be doing for a
Okay.
living because you're probably providing too many services to too many audiences as it is. Because all of the barriers have been removed now. If you're a
Okay.
coach, if you're a subject matter expert, if you're an advisor, literally the entire world could be yours. So you can focus on one thing and even one audience and have more business than you know what to do with. That's the first thing. The second thing I've been on lately is delegate to accelerate, which is something that I think is really important. And this will help you identify what you're special at. Again, you're going back to not all the products that you provide, but all of the activities you need to do to run your business. Write down the top 10 activities that you have to do and which one of those activities, or two or three, maybe, that literally only you can do. So in my business, just to give you an example,
Yeah.
my top 10 is everything from billing to, email newsletters and production and that kind of stuff. But the three things or the two things that I cannot outsource are performances and the actual coaching of my clients.
Yep.
Everything else has to get delegated.
Gotcha. Okay.
Doing those two exercises, you're going to be left with what what do you love to do that you're the best in the world at? And to make a business out of it, what activities do you have to do and only you can do to make that business come to life? So you're going to take a very broad um, opportunity and narrow it, not only to what subject you're going to talk about, but what part of the business you're going to operate. And when you take a light and you laser focus it like that, every minute of every day is going to be spent doing the reason why you're on the planet. The third thing I would say is an exercise I was taught called edge crafting. Now, this was taught to me. This isn't my exercise, but this is something that we would do on a whiteboard, and I learned it from one of my previous jobs.
Okay.
Edge crafting is um, you're going to solve a customer's problem. Okay. You're going to start throwing out solutions that get more and more intense and keep on moving it until you cross the line and then pull it back just slightly behind the line. And when you do that, you're going to have a solution that stands out because you've moved it so far forward and so intense and unique that it will be different than what everybody else will do. Does that make sense? I feel like I didn't explain that real well, but
Well, I'm trying. So, can you give us an example of what that looks like at all?
yeah,
Because I mean, I've never heard of edge crafting. So, if listeners haven't, we're trying to catch up to you.
yeah, sure. Let's say that I'm trying to come up with an example off the top of my head. Let's say you're a mattress store.
Okay.
Okay. Uh, all right. So you want to make sure that they love their mattress.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have a showroom where the mattresses are. Okay,
Okay.
that's great. Well, the next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that they love their mattress in their house. So you're going to deliver the mattress to their house and give them a free trial. Okay, everybody does that. And you know what else you're going to do? You're going to put crazy sheets on the mattress when they show up because nobody does that. People will deliver the mattress, but they won't actually put the nice sheets on the mattress. That's going to be a differentiator.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. And then, then I'm going to keep on going. And I'm also going to make sure that I leave with brand new pillows and chocolates on them. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call them the next morning and see how and then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sleep in the bed with them. That's one step too far.
Yeah. Okay.
Pull it back. You see
Gotcha.
what I mean? Like you keep on getting
Sure.
more and more and more intense on what your service is.
Okay.
And by doing that, you'll drive yourself past where the competitors will go, but you'll stop just short of being not inappropriate is the wrong way to look at it, but something like that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
and I wish I had a better example
No,
off
that's
the
a
top of
really
my
good
head.
example. That really
Because
helps
think
me
of it.
understand that. I mean, is
So
it like value stacking where you just keep stacking things on top of what you're already providing? Or is it a different, it almost sounds a little bit different where you're trying to find that edge? I mean, that's kind of,
yeah.
you're pushing towards that spot.
Yeah, it's positioning.
Okay.
It's helping you position yourself in a unique way that you're going to solve the problem in a way that nobody else solves the problem. So it's not necessarily adding more value onto the purchase. It's positioning the purchase activity and the results of the purchase in a way that nobody else would do it that way. Because you ultimately want to offer the most unique position that you can to the most unique customer you can to make a living. So going back to your left-handed plumbers,
Mhm.
if you sold a tool that left-handed plumbers would love to have, and there
Right.
were enough left-handed plumbers for you to make a living, you could dominate that space.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
you want to find a unique audience with a unique product solved in a unique way that feels like play to you and work to everybody else. If you can do all of that,
Sure.
you're going to be wealthy and happy, which is what everybody wants.
Sure. Awesome. So you start with writing it down, like you talked about, and then you kind of delegate as much as you can and focus on those things that only you can do.
Correct.
And then you create that edge crafting message. So do those three kind of they kind of stacked on top of each other where you can't start, it doesn't feel like you can start halfway through, because I think a lot of people struggle with I'm going to call it quiet time, where you sit with a blank sheet of paper and you turn off your email and you shut everything down, and ideally you get into a place where nobody is, and then you just start writing those things down. That's probably a place where most people, they never even get to that,
Right.
because we want to do something. If we're not doing something, we're not successful. We're not, if my parents said, don't just stand there, do something, right? you know Go ahead. Because
I was just saying,
I learned the opposite of, don't just stand, just don't just do something, stand there.
hmm,
So I'm kind of looking at both ways, and and I'm kind of absorbing what you're saying, and I'm like, man, if I don't just stand there, this will never work.
yeah.
Just give me something to do, Pat, man. I'm much rather just give me something to do. Give me 40 push-ups. Let me run around to 47 networking events, Pat. I just got to do something, right? And the first thing you're saying that I'm hearing, I'm interpreting, is you got to stop and not do anything. And that's got to like sideswipe a lot of people, because who wants to sit and do nothing?
A lot of people would rather stay busy than listen to their inner voice. And
Yeah,
being busy will mute their inner voice and their inner drive. Because a lot of people think, well, I'd love to create ideas, but I can't create a business just about creating ideas. And I would
right.
challenge you to say you absolutely can. And if you can take what you love and turn it into a business, then you're going to be so successful in so many different ways. And the one thing that we didn't talk about with the exercise
Yeah,
is that you then have to do a deep dive analysis on exactly who your customer is.
sure.
So if you know what you love, what your customer wants, what you need to do to be successful and delegate everything else, it'll give you the opportunity to run for office on that very narrow product deliverable, make
Yep.
a ton of people happy, and have a lot of fun.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because deep diving that on the customer, on the prospect, whatever, that's why, again, sixth grade mind pulls out Mr. Potato Head and says, hey, where does your customer eat? Where do they sleep? What do they think about? What exactly are they doing? And maybe, the eyes you want to put somewhere else. You get to create your ideal customer that way. And without having that exercise being done, and I know when I've done that with people in sessions, some people just they don't just give me something to do. Tell me what to do. Tell me who the top 10 people, they want me to tell them. And if I tell them, the next person is going to tell them something different, and they're going to totally be on that path. So I'd much rather people discover it on their own rather than have me convince them, because there's such a depth and an ownership when when I'm convincing myself. It's down here. When I own it, it's here. When you're telling me, it's just up here, and it can just disappear so quick. So
Well,
that's awesome.
and not all customers are created equal. So this exercise originated back when I was in radio, is that
Okay.
we would make an avatar for the listenership. And the way radio works is that it's, and like a lot of businesses, there are super users and casual users. And the super users listened 3 times as much as the casual users. So every aspect of a radio station is targeted at those super users. They call them
Okay.
P1s in the industry.
Nice.
Any business that's been open can also look at their customer reports and their profiles and probably find who their super users are and
Sure.
who their casual users are. So if you don't kind of get the idea of how to draw your customer out of thin air, go to your customer CRM and look who's doing the most business with you. I bet you'll find some uniting factors about who those people are. They
Yep.
may not be demographic, they may not be regional, but there may be industry related, or the method in which they buy, or the product that they buy.
Right.
You identify those uniting factors, that gives you the idea of who to run after.
That's
And
awesome.
it will help you with your targeting, with your new product creation, with your messaging for sure. And it makes things a lot easier. So if you can't like visualize this exercise of who you should be talking to,
Sure.
just look in to see who's doing business with you and then
Sure.
call them. They'll
Sure.
tell you.
Yep. That's awesome. In my last business, we did that and we realized that the ideal customer for us, the number one thing was we were selling to the construction world. And so the number one thing that we needed was when the owner took an active role in the decision making and the daily activity of the business, we had a fantastic chance at a good relationship. So we always knew, the bigger builders, the people that, you could never talk to the people that were the owner, or they weren't in the decision-making process. They had a purchasing manager, or they had somebody else involved. That relationship wasn't as successful as sitting down with the owner and explaining that. So we were able to really do that deep dive. So that's really, I'm glad that you shared that. So
And
that's,
in that kind of messaging, you would say something like, we help owner operators build better houses,
yep.
right? And so that way you're saying, those are my best customers. And I'm going to go say, those are the people that I'm going to go, or whatever the term is in
Yeah,
construction. I
absolutely.
just made that
Yep.
up, but
Yeah.
that kind of idea, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, cool. So, hey, as we start to come in for a landing, tell me some more about the shows and the hosts and what are you all involved with? I mean, I see like you everywhere. So, what are the top three things right now that you are involved with outside of the Idea Coach thing?
Yeah, so I'm trying to create as many stages as I can and put small business owners on them so we can all get better.
Okay.
So I have a podcast, I have a weekend radio appearance, and I have a new small business owners community, two of them, in fact, that I'm really excited about. So the radio thing that I'm doing is with the biggest stick in the state, 620 WTMJ. On Saturday and Sunday, I host the Small Business Showcase, where I do an interview just like this, and we get to know business owners from all around the state.
Yep.
Tell us about your business. Tell us how you've grown your business and what can we learn from what you've done. So that airs on 620. And anyone listening to this show that would like to appear on that show, just hit me up on my website and I'd be happy to consider you because I'm here to support small business owners as they grow. I
Awesome.
also host a national podcast. The eWomen Network is a national network of female entrepreneurs, and their mission is to get 1 million women to make $1 million a year. I'm a premier success coach for that organization, and I host a podcast called Lift as We Climb, where same mission, different platform. I'm interviewing entrepreneurs from all around the world and putting them on that show and distributing it through the eWomen Network. So those are two pieces of content. Oh, I forgot one. I'm also participating in YGTV, the Young Guns movement,
Okay.
which launched last fall, or last February rather. We're launching a new television network called YGTV, and I'm going to host a show called YG Roundtable, where I'm going to interview thought leaders and subject matter experts, again, to get great content out there to help entrepreneurs and small business owners grow.
Wow.
And then I host two communities.
Awesome.
Right? On
What do you
Facebook, I
do
host,
after lunch then, Pat? I
I
mean,
know, right? That's just the
sorry.
on,
What are the
on
two communities?
yeah,
I
sure.
interrupted you.
On Facebook, I run a group called Brand Crafted, which is a small business owners meetup group for Southeast Wisconsin. We host coffee events, educational events, lunch meetups, and a vibrant Facebook group. Free to join. Would love to have you if you're an entrepreneur in Southeast Wisconsin. And then there's a national group called the Idea Collective. Now, the Idea Collective is different because there are a lot of places where we can go network. There aren't a lot of places we can go to get help. So the Idea Collective is a group of small business owners from all around the country that are working together to master the art of small business. And
Okay.
again, this helps us cover up our weak spots, get support, and get accountability from other small business owners. That's new. That launched in June, but it's off to a great start. And I'm so excited because at the end of July, we are going to have Mike Michalowicz, the business author who wrote Profit First and the Pumpkin Plan, do a private webinar just for our group. So we're going to
Awesome.
get some great value to them right out of the chute. And if you're interested in that, I'd love to tell you more.
Awesome. That's so cool. Cool. That man, there right there is why I was so excited to get you on and pick your brain. I wrote down a ton of notes. What would be, as we come in there, I got two more questions and then I'm going to let you roll. Number one is, what would be a tip of the week if you had to give a tip of the week for, an entrepreneur listening? It can be what we already talked about. Maybe there's something that we haven't covered, but what tip would you give to a struggling entrepreneur right now?
I'd give two, one that I alluded to earlier, but I'm going to give another one because I think it's pretty important. The thing that I alluded to earlier is that virtual assistants are a complete cheat code for small business owners.
Okay.
If
Yeah.
you're busy right now, don't be busy. Hire people who work at an hourly rate lower than what you charge and delegate your work. It's a cheat code. If you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong.
Yep.
That's the first one.
Good.
The second thing that's really helped me out is that one of the most powerful forces in the universe is the power of digital replication.
Okay.
If I perform something and put it out on the web, it costs me $0 to replicate it.
Gotcha.
So if I perform one thing for one people or one thing for 1,000 people, it
Yep.
costs me the same.
Okay.
So if you're trading time for dollars, you're doing it wrong.
Okay.
As a small business owner or entrepreneur, you need to find a way to create content or offer your product in a way that digital replication, which has a zero cost to scale, is a part of your strategy. And if it's not, you need to find a way to make it part of your strategy.
Awesome. So if people want to connect with you direct,
Sure.
what's the best way for somebody to reach out and, jump on a call with you, whatever, connect with you in whatever way works? Where would they find you?
At my website, patmillerideacoach.com,
Okay.
or on LinkedIn is a great place to do it as well. And it's neat to have this opportunity because I'm definitely looking to expand and diversify my network in Southeast Wisconsin. So I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to come on and talk about this. It's been a real pleasure.
Absolutely. So it's just for the world to know, it's Miller, Miller, correct?
That's right. We have to say that. We're in Southeast Wisconsin. You're
Yeah,
right.
well, no, I'm just so excited that I got an easy name, because I just get these, I get people that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm practicing the night before the podcast to make sure
Right.
that I get it right,
That's right.
And I'm like, oh no, so Pat, this has been so much fun. 50 minutes just flew by. I thought we'd get it in 30, and you just had so much content that I so appreciate that. So again, thanks for everything. It sounds like you got a ton of stuff going, and I can't wait to keep watching on LinkedIn and all the other platforms. So again, thanks for your time. And everybody, feel free to jump on Pat's website and reach out to him and see what ideas you have that he can help you implement. So until next time, have a great day.